So this is just a quick one, and that's all I've had time for lately, is a quick one. But since I've talked about in the community page or videos off and on about selling my van and sort of like, oh, it hasn't sold yet and blah, 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 I keep getting comments about, have you ever thought of lowering the price of the van? Please check the ad before you leave that bloody comment. It's been lowered actually twice. I have literally never in my life sold my own vehicle. I prefer going to the dealership and trading it in. You know why? It's no headache. You get a worse deal. You're going to make so much more, even if you have to lower your price along the way, selling an automobile on your own versus doing the whole trade-in thing at a dealership. But if I had that option, I'd do that. Make a couple $100 on this van and do a payment plan. But the problem is, once you get to a certain size of commercial vehicle, it just isn't as easy to do that. Like the kind of places where I would look in the dealership world to get what I want don't really want a Chevy Express passenger van that's been built out to be a camper van. It's just not like if you're kind of trading in, your Toyota Corolla for, I don't know, some SUV you want, or a minivan, or things that are more commonly at your common dealerships. Unless you're getting like a brand new Sprinter Pro Max. Now, I'm willing to do a payment plan, but not on something that expensive. I also don't want those. I literally don't. Even if I had the money, I would be making the exact same choice right now. If I had money like that, I would still get a box truck. I would probably get it brand new, and I would get it custom built. So my interest in doing a box truck wouldn't change if I had more money, but definitely if I had, if moving forward wasn't contingent on selling this van, I'd go ahead and lose money on it, just not to deal with the selling process. So that being said, I've never sold a vehicle on my own. Like the vehicle I paid for that I had before this, I gave away for free because I'm like, I got this, this beautiful gift from Ken. And then I knew somebody who needed a vehicle, who had just unfortunately, lost a vehicle. And to find out those things at the same time, it seemed like the universe was saying, here is a beautiful place, you can make a gift of this. But also, I wouldn't have known how to begin to sell that minivan because it was built out simply. It had a very simple build. You could camp in it. And just like that van, this van seems to appeal most to people who are looking for a weekender van. Like most of the people I've talked to who seemed even borderline serious and followed through and actually came to see the van, were looking for something as a weekender van. This is not really appealing to people who are looking for a full-time van. Now, I would have found it appealing, especially starting out living in a car, but a lot of the people who are interested seem to lean to the side of looking for a weekender van. That's just been the result. So first of all, like I said, I've never sold a vehicle before, and it's not as simple as I have a 2001 Toyota Corolla. I don't know why I'm picking these random vehicles. And so you just look that up and you say, okay, well, this is the value. I can place what I'm doing based on this Kelley Blue Book value. Because the build out, in addition to the actual stuff, in addition to the actual stuff in the van, like the Dometic fridge, the cell booster, the battery charger, all the other stuff in the solar system, all that stuff has like some sort of monetary value, but cut down because it's used. But there's also the fact that if you're looking for something just to go in, that you don't have to do any work, that you literally can just go. And because weekenders are attracted to my van the most, I'm going to say you can go camp on the weekend, come home, and you don't have to go through any of the labor of building the van. It has a place you can sleep. you just need to replace the mattress, because I've said I'm not going to leave the mattress in here. Honestly, I don't think most people would find it that comfortable. And I had a lady sit on it, and she was like, yeah, I see why you're not doing the mattress. We had a laugh about it. So mine is like little things, like very little things. You could buy this and the next weekend go out camping with your friends, or, anything like that. It's also depending on your value, and also using it as a daily driver. Most of the people I've talked to don't want it as a daily driver. It's an additional vehicle. It's a side vehicle. It's a weekender vehicle. Those are the people who seem most attracted to this van set up the way it is now. And I think full-timers, the build out isn't a value to them, because they're looking for a deal on a van, but they're also looking for something they want to build out on their own. They have images of what they want to build out on their own. So the value of that is contingent on how much it means to somebody on the other end. It's not the fanciest building in the world. Like, I never took this stuff down, so this is just the van. There's no significant installation here, and I've just lived in it that way, because I was like, I didn't have the time to like strip this down to the metal. I didn't have the place or location or money to strip this down to the metal. And what I mean by money is, in order to go that far with your strip down before you build, you need somebody somewhere else to live while you're doing that. And I just didn't have that kind of situation or money. I had to, every single situation I've had to move in and live in it now. There's no like hanging out my house while I slowly do all the intricate steps. But I didn't need to, because I was in a relatively like mild climate most of the time. Like extreme cold or even extreme heat. Like, I'm not in Southern California, I'm in Northern California. Like, those things are rare. I'm mostly in a mild climate. Like, it gets cold enough that I need to layer up, and it gets hot enough I want to turn on my fans sometimes. And I don't even have a roof vent. I have fans in my pop-out windows. So, like, that is the limit of how much I worry about temperature control. I'm not in Minnesota. I don't, even for a weekender, somebody who lives in Minnesota might not have wanted this van. But mostly I'm not getting people from Minnesota. I'm getting, replies from people who also live in a mild climate where, they don't plan to use it in severe situations. So the value of the build, outside of the things that we can quickly put monetary value on, has a value, but it's a value contingent on the person interested in buying the van. There is nothing wrong with this van. If I am in this van for the next 6 months dreaming about the next thing, it's not that big of a deal, except in my impatience. This is a comfortable house. I'm not going to sell it quick or to a lowball offer just to get the next thing because I'm dreaming about it. And the more money I save up, the more loose I can be with how much I can give. I also need to protect myself. I'm not living in a house with this sitting in the driveway and it can just go the second somebody shows up with cash. No, somebody has to say they're actually interested. I need to clean it out because I'm still actively living in it. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with this van. This van is great. like if there weren't other things I was trying to accomplish, there's no reason not to run this van to its rails. And if the universe says, cool, Dawn, no, you need to stay in this van, it's not the end of the world. There are things that would be more convenient, things I would like to do, and it's not just standing up. If I just had this van and it just added some inches on the roof, it wouldn't really solve my problems without still a full gut and a rebuild. And for all the people who've mentioned just adding a top to the van, I did investigate that, and it's just not worth it. This is, again, bouncing around with its value. The ways that it has a lot of value that I have to figure out how to calculate on top of the Kelley Blue Book value, and then being realistic about the fact it's a 20-year-old van, and ultimately I do want something else. If I was 100% committed to this van is perfect except for not standing up, it might be worth it, and also worth it to save the kind of money I would need for a new engine and transmission, and when those things, finally come to be, just do that. But I don't think I've always wanted before I got offered this van and I ended up moving into it, And I was living in my minivan, and I was in Oregon, and I just lost my job, and COVID had started, but they were letting us hang out in the employee housing for a bit. I was online almost every day looking at box trucks. So while it's the first time I'm talking to you guys about it, it was an idea that has been bouncing around in my head, probably since just before COVID, and I was right at the point where I was about to pay off the minivan. After almost 2 years of paying on it, I was finally reaching the end, so I could sell it if I wanted to, and I was trying to figure out, how much money I would need in the bank to match that by selling the minivan in order to get a box truck. And while I was making those mathematical negotiations and fantasy looking at box trucks, it's always been box trucks. I need to stop pretending there's ever been anything else at the top of my list. I've glanced at shuttle buses. I said if I found the right deal, a shuttle bus might be cool. I've looked into step vans, but I still haven't reached a point where I feel comfortable that I would feel comfortable with driving a step van. And then and ambulances. Ambulances have hung around at the bottom, but ambulances are kind of weird. So editing Dawn here to kind of interrupt this statement to kind of clarify it. Because I think sometimes when we're having conversations about ambulances, we forget to note that they're pretty much just a slight variation on everything else that's being built out. Their only real advantage is all the ambulance stuff in them. That's to say, they already have a separate electrical and water systems, and sometimes they have really cool storage already built into it. Now, the most classic known version of an ambulance that pops up in people's heads when they're talking about ambulances is actually just a cutaway van or a box truck, both of which are pictured here. So these type of ambulances are literally just box trucks and cutaway vans that were built out as ambulances, but at their very base, they're pretty much the same thing as far as body style. Now, the other type of ambulance that is also fairly common is exactly what I have with a topper on top. So you have your classic cargo van ambulance that just has a topper that was probably made by Fiberine, because Fiberine actually sells that top for sale for you to get it put on your van. And actually, a lot of the more modern ambulances are Sprinter vans and Ford Transits. I don't think I've seen a ProMaster ambulance or like the tall Nissan NV is an ambulance, but both Sprinter and Ford Transit actually have ambulances out there. So when we use the word ambulance, it is kind of a throwaway word because we are basically talking about cargo vans, cutaway vans, box trucks, and our more modern standing height cargo vans like the Sprinter and the Ford Transit. Now, back to what I was saying before. You can stand up in a lot of them. They have a lot of pre-built RV advantages as far as systems, but the sizes are really variable. Some of them, like, you can stand up in them, but just barely. Like, once you actually get stuff in there, there isn't a lot of flexible moving around space. So I've been obsessed with box trucks, even with how it would change, how I would have to drive and park and gas considerations. I have been obsessed. You guys are just getting introduced to my obsession because I opened the floodgates. I've been obsessed with box trucks since before I got this van. In fact, I was trying to figure out how to get from the minivan to a box truck, and then it was like this got offered, and I was like, well, maybe this is supposed to be my next thing, because I still would have had to plan and save and stay in the minivan for at least another year before I can make the transition. And also I wanted to see, like, if I just got a full-size van, how would that change things? Like, would that be enough? Because at the time I wasn't thinking about the box truck and its advantages the way I'm thinking about it now as far as how I would like to make my next tiny home. But I still wanted it. So it's just been an evolution of the same idea. So pricing, it's been an experiment. I was like, I looked at a bunch of camper vans. I was like, okay, well, if this type of camper van is this, I'm going to value mine here. And it was the wrong number. Okay. And I was like, okay, did some more poking and looking around, and I was like, okay, I'll adjust. And so I adjusted the price, that was on the ad. And it did get me more responses, but nobody's followed through. And it is open for negotiation. I'm not going to put too much in a video about it because I am trying to avoid screwing myself over. I am a pushover, which is another reason I don't care about going to the dealership and doing a trade-in in a situation where that could be my first and best option, because at least I don't have to deal with this. The is it available, the making arrangements to me. I'm so exhausted from this past week. There were so many videos I meant to edit to get out that never happened. Like, they're just raw footage sitting on my hard drive. Because I was waking up in the morning, I was meeting people in public places so they could look at the van. And then after that was over, I'm an introvert. Even when I like people, even when I have a good time, there's a level of exhaustion after dealing with people that I just need to sit in my space, reflect a little bit, and be chill. And so I do that. So it's just been difficult. Like, it's gotten easier meeting strangers. And I consider it completely different from YouTube. People are, but you're on YouTube. I'm literally in my van by myself, talking to, literally, in this case, my cell phone. So that's not the same thing as having to be in a crowd of people. There is nobody here. There's nobody here. And like I said, even when I've met some really, really nice people who came to look at the van, a couple that were so pushy and intimidating, it actually made me want to crawl in my shell. And so, I needed the asking price to be reasonable, but not reasonable as in firm, because that's never going to be me. People can talk me out of stuff all the time. But reasonable to a negotiation level. And so that's what I did. I found that number. I needed to push myself into posting the ad, which I did. And then I needed to push myself. Well, I didn't need to push myself after that. After that, I was in the ocean, in the middle of the ocean, trying to figure out, what my level was. And I think I found my level. I'm happy with the posted price. I wouldn't adjust it any further than what it is. That doesn't mean it's not negotiable in an exact conversation. And I'm just, on the train. And like I said, the worst thing that happens is that I stay in this van longer. And that's not a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with this van. There's just things I want to accomplish that this van is not capable of allowing me to accomplish as far as what I want to do with a tiny home. And I think it's interesting. It's also, it's very interesting that the majority of people who have been attracted to this van are people who are weekenders and not looking to live in it full time. And also, I had to go through the process. I had to get the ad out there to even figure that out. So before you tell me about how I should adjust the price, because it's coming left and right based on the first time I ever posted about this, please actually check the ad. Those things have an edit button, and people go through a process and learn. And maybe this will be favorable to me in the future. If down the road I want to sell some other type of vehicle, this will have forced me to be prepared for the process in a different way. There's a first time for everything. I've never gone through this. I don't have any real support through this, as far as people in person. Everybody's encouraging and positive, but even I knew, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to put something out here and see where it lands. And that's what I do most of the time, guys. It wasn't like I wasn't trying to scam anybody. I wasn't trying to like run numbers up for the sake of running numbers. What I was trying to do was protect myself from getting scammed or lowballed, while still being fair and reasonable. And it took me a second to find that number, and I just played around with it, you know? But people are going to think what they think on the internet, and there's people who are like dog talking me for the decision I've made, and I guess that just comes with being on the internet, so I can't fight that. But if I get one more person telling me that I should lower the price on a van that I already lowered the price on, please check the ad. Like, don't assume that's something that changes. All right, that's all I wanted to say. I'm just getting ranty and frustrated. See ya. So sorry about getting a little ranty there. Sometimes you just get the same comment so many times, like your brain suddenly feels like it's gonna explode. So I guess I got some business to get to. If you're interested in more videos from this channel, please feel free to hit that subscribe button right below the video. There's also a bell you can ding, whatever, which should more efficiently notify you when I've posted new videos. There's a thumbs up, there's a thumbs down, and there's a comment section. And all this stuff helps the YouTube algorithm know that you like interacting with my video and telling me what you think about it. And do feel free to tell me what you think about it. It's okay. Thank you to everybody who throws in a little extra support on Patreon and YouTube memberships.